Hi everyone, this is OCD Live and Ali Raymond. Let's get to some questions. Okay, so the first question I have is practicing exposures for OCD thoughts about past events, how to do that. So if you have a situation that's maybe like a false memory OCD or just OCD thought about something happening in the past, how can you do exposures for that? Because you're really focused on that one thought and it has to do in the past, so it's not like you can do exposures in the present because you're still going to be worried about the past. And the way of doing that is every time you get a thought, I know you're thinking about it all the time, but every time the thought really kind of bothers you, use that as an exposure, because really you are exposed at that moment to the OCD situation. You're fully engaged, you're fully, thinking about it. So in that way, that's going to be your initial exposure. So the thought hits, that's an exposure. What are you going to do? Are you going to pay more attention to it and try to go over the situation, try to remember all the details, if it happened, if it didn't happen, all of the kind of going over the situation over and over again in your mind until you feel like you've solved it? Or are you going to refocus and move on to something else? And with refocusing, you're going to have to keep refocusing. So you're going to try to focus on something else. Your mind is going to try to get you back to thinking about the past. Then you're going to again refocus. Your mind again is going to try to get you back to thinking about the past. So you're going to keep doing that, but always don't agree to do what OCD wants you to do, So OCD wants you to look at the past, and if it changes your attention back a million times, you're going to change it back to what you want it to be on, because you have to prove to your mind that the program that it's on is wrong and what you are doing is right, and you can only prove it by actually not just talking the talk, as they say, but walking the walk. So you have to show your mind in action that you are disregarding the thoughts, and doing it continuously. So because if you do it continuously, your mind is going to see, okay, when the person is exposed to this situation, in this case looking at the past, they're doing nothing, yet they're still alive, they're still safe, nothing is wrong, nothing happened, and that just means that there is no danger, and then your mind will eventually drop it. So that's how you go through it. So using it every time you have a thought, using that thought as if it's a real exposure, because it really is. Okay, so next question. Can you get over OCD without staying constantly busy? And specifically with pure O, but with really any OCD. And you have to define constantly busy. If you are thinking more in the way of purposefully not giving yourself even one moment of freedom and having, like, being always engaged in something specifically to not have an OCD thought, then it starts to sound like avoidance. So then that's not good, because you're doing it out of fear. You want to be busy because you are making the choice to be busy, right? You still have a little bit of fear, obviously, and in some cases a lot of fear, but you are making the choice because you know logically that that's the right thing to do. But if you are almost like as a compulsive action are staying busy, then that's not really a good thing, and you need to go back to making the decision to disregard the thought. If it comes true in the future, or you find out in some way that it was worth looking into, then you will deal with it then. But right now you are choosing to disregard and you're choosing to move on. And when you have that initial setup in your mind that that's what you want to do, then you can do with that, you can do whatever you want. So you can stay busy, you can stay not so busy. Obviously, the less activity you have in your life, the harder your OCD thoughts will generally be, because if the mind is not focused on anything else, it's going to have more resources for OCD. So in that case, it is going to be a little bit harder, but we are living, breathing human beings, so we're always busy to a certain extent, just to, basically take care of ourselves and our environment, right? So that alone should be enough. But if you feel like you do have a lot of free time and it's starting to get filled up with OCD, I say that the best thing is to get an activity that will keep you really busy. If if you don't have a job, or if you would like to have a part-time job, you can do that. You can do going to the gym, doing volunteering if you don't really feel like getting a job right now. You can also do like some sort of a club, or some sort of an activity that you like. It doesn't really matter specifically what you do. It more so matters that you're doing something that has nothing to do with OCD, you know? And again, you might experience a situation where your new activity will bring on OCD, and you have to go through it and use it as an exposure, because it will help you in the long term. Because the more exposures you have, the better off you will be at recovery, as long as you take each exposure and you do the correct thing. Because exposure, all it is a point in time where you were faced with the situation you are scared of. What you do with it depends on how your mind views it. So if you face an exposure situation, but you do the wrong thing by seeking reassurance, avoiding all of that stuff, you are actually making yourself worse. So doing an exposure does not necessarily mean that you are improving. You have to not only do the exposure, but do it correctly, because if you do it incorrectly, you're actually taking a huge step backwards. So you have to be prepared for it, and viewing it as just something that you need to do in order to recover. Okay, so next question I have is, if you are working and you are in a situation where your job is giving you a lot of OCD, should you switch jobs? And the answer is very clear, and it's no, you should not switch jobs unless you have additional circumstances that kind of make it a bad idea to keep with that job. But if it's simply because of OCD, then you need to keep going with it, because the more you switch out of jobs because of OCD, and not just jobs, the more you switch out of life circumstances because of OCD, the more OCD you're going to get, because again, you're sending that signal to your mind that you are in danger, that there's fear here, that there's danger here, and your mind will send you more of these thoughts. Like, for example, I get asked all the time if like you are in a relationship, for example, and the relationship is giving you OCD. You're not gonna, like end the relationship so you don't have any more OCD, right? So it doesn't make sense to do that. So it's the same thing with a job. If you have OCD because of your job, chances are your new job that you are going to get, you're still going to get OCD. So it doesn't matter if it's this job or that job. So no, you shouldn't. Sometimes, from time to time, I see where people are in a job that doesn't give them OCD directly, but just is bad hours, or a lot of time by themselves, or in an environment that that's unhealthy, generally speaking. So it doesn't give them OCD directly, but it kind of promotes unhealth, which keeps OCD going, if that makes sense. And in those cases, there might be a situation where you could look at switching to something that's more normal hours. Hours is a huge thing. If you're going to bed not at normal time, that can make OCD go nuts, because at the same time, if you are having weird hours, chances are you're going to be drinking caffeine. So it's like one problem starts another, starts another, starts another. So really what you want to do is you want to make sure that your job is helping you recover, but if it's giving you anxiety, that's not necessarily bad. As long as everybody else would view it as a good job with good normal hours, nothing out of the ordinary, then I'd say that you should stick it out. Okay, so next question: is it ever okay to seek reassurance? The short answer is no. It's never okay to seek reassurance, because you are really making yourself worse. But if you are in a situation where you're gonna either seek a little bit reassurance now or a ton of reassurance later, I would say really try not to, but if you can, for now get reassurance instead of like a small reassurance. I guess it's not really okay, but it for now it might be all right in a sense of a stepping stone. So you are working towards not having OCD reassurance situations at all, but right now you're still not there yet. So and maybe try to kind of stagger it where you are, okay, I seeked reassurance about it last time, I'm not going to do it this time, and then next time if I have it, I'll do it. So at least you are moving towards the recovery, so you're moving forward rather than constantly seeking a lot of reassurance and moving backwards. Okay, so next question I have is harm OCD more difficult to get over than other types of OCD? So first of all, harm OCD is a type of OCD thought where you are worried that you will cause harm to whether yourself or other people, and it could be about the past, like a false memory OCD, or about the future, like people worried that they'll kind of lose their mind and hurt somebody or something like that. So I would say it's not really more difficult, and more so, most OCD at its core is a harm OCD. Because if you think of cleaning OCD, okay, well, why is the person cleaning? Are they cleaning because they want to make sure that there's no bacteria or germs that can be, I don't know, somehow cause harm to somebody, to themselves, or to somebody else? If you think of, for example, even like a driving OCD, right? Where you are worried that, okay, well, if I'm driving and I hit somebody, so that's a harm OCD. So a lot of these OCDs that are kind of not directly labeled as harm OCD, really in underneath all of that are harm OCD. So it is very common, and the recovery of it, it's the same. It's not really worse than other types of OCD because the process is the same. The only thing I would say is kind of worse about harm OCD is that, if it's some other type of OCD, such as maybe like religious OCD or um, relationship OCD, it's not as difficult to talk about with other people about it. With harm OCD, if you're thinking that you are going to murder somebody or cause harm in some sort of a way, it's a lot harder to discuss that with people around you, because it's obviously like, you don't know how they're going to react to it, and if they don't have any experience with OCD, they might think that you mean what you're saying, and it can start a whole new problem. So in that way, it's more difficult. If you do have harm OCD, I suggest not really talking a lot about it to other people, because really the compulsions themselves, the obsessions themselves, they don't really matter. And just because you have harm OCD right now doesn't mean you'll have harm OCD, later on, right? If you don't get over it. So the thoughts themselves can switch, and in the end, OCD is not a life sentence. You can get over it. You just need to constantly be working on getting over it, and you will get over it. Most people get over it in 6 months. So if you think about it in that way, if in 6 months you get over the thought, what is the point really of telling other people the details of it? And logically, you know that you had these thoughts before, similar thoughts before, and none of them were true, none of them turned out to be real or anything like that, or important. So, and those felt real, and you probably felt at some point like you needed to confess. So there's just no need to talk about it, I find, and specific with any type of OCD, but specifically with harm OCD, because it will create more problems than it will solve. Actually, it will solve no problems. If anything, it will make your OCD worse. So I say, if you do have harm OCD, you do need to let other people know that you are suffering from OCD, that you maybe are having a hard day, but why are you having a hard day? What is the details of the thought? They don't need to know that. Okay, so next question I have, is medication absolutely necessary for recovery, and can I recover without using medication? Absolutely, you can recover without any medication whatsoever. Um, it's really just if you would like to have kind of like a little bit easier time recovery, you can use medication, but it's just a band-aid, so it's not gonna take all of your symptoms away. You'll still experience anxiety. Your anxiety might just be a little bit lower, but it won't be so much lower that you will really notice it. It will just be slightly lower. You still will have to do the work. So you working on exposures, working on recovery is really what's gonna help you recover, you know. Medication, it will just help you slightly to lower the symptoms while you are taking it. And if you have a doctor that suggests to you to take the medication for the rest of your life, then you need to find a new doctor, because people get over OCD every day. I get over OCD. You know, I'm not the strongest person in the world, the most, strongest willed or anything like that. If I can get over OCD, you can get over OCD. All my clients, well, not all my clients, but most of my clients get over OCD. So you definitely can get over OCD. And medication, I mean, as a temporary tool, it's, I mean, just like I said, like most of my clients get over OCD within 6 months. So in that way, even if you take medication for 6 months, what is it going to do in terms of the span of a lifetime, really? But I find that a lot of the times where people go wrong with the medication is where they start to view it as the only tool of getting over OCD, and that becomes problematic. Because obviously, it's not, and then, they start to take it, and then it's not working, so they go to a higher dose. There's side effects to that high dose, so just don't think about it that way. Think of it as a temporary situation, and your permanent situation is what you're doing in your recovery work. And it will take work to recover from OCD, but yes, it's not even entirely possible, it's entirely doable. It's very, very doable. Trust me. You really have to do the work, and as you do the work, you will see that your thoughts, maybe that were staying there for a long time, will start to switch very quickly. And the reason why they start to switch quickly when you start to do recovery work is because they're not sticking to you. You are disregarding, and the thought is leaving, but your brain is still not able to let go, so your brain will come up with a new thought. I explain this a lot fuller in my books if you guys are interested in more of a background to this. But when you have a situation where your thoughts are starting to switch very fast, that means you are in the process of recovery. If you're in the situation where the thought is lasting for a long time and it's not switching, then that means you are doing a lot of reassurance. And reassurance can be reassurance from self, meaning analyzing, or reassurance from other people or online sources, or trying to do some sort of a checks. And there could be many different reasons, but somewhere you are doing reassurance that is powering that thought up, if you feel like you have a thought that's lasting for a long time. Okay, and the last question I have is about OCD twisting thoughts. So you remember thinking about something in the past, but what if it wasn't that, it was something else? And it could be not just twisting thoughts, but twisting images, or twisting beliefs, or twisting situations that because things about the past, we don't really remember them 100%, but we remember the parts that are most important. But the parts that were not important, we don't really remember them as well. And OCD says, well, you don't remember that specific moment. What if this and this and this happened in that moment? Or you don't really remember that specific thought or whatever. And what if you thought this and not that? So this is very common, nothing to be afraid of. And again, when you get these thoughts, whether they're images about the past, or thoughts, or situations that you don't really clearly remember, and OCD gives you a possibility, you have to be very calm and say, this is OCD. I'm choosing to view it as OCD. I don't need to find proof that it's OCD. I'm just choosing to view it as OCD. If my choice is wrong and I find out it's wrong somewhere in the future, I will deal with it in the future. I'm not dealing with it now, because right now I'm choosing to view it as only OCD. And just using this kind of like this paragraph that I just said, basically kind of using it as a mantra and every time acting this way. And it's going to be very hard. I mean, it was very hard for me. It's very hard for everybody who recovers from OCD. But you can definitely do it. And by doing this and saying this to your mind, almost try to talk to your mind like it's a real person, you know? Explain to your mind that there's no reason to worry, that this is just a thought, it got out of control, and that you're trying to move on from it, and there's no danger associated with it. And if you repeat this enough times to your mind, and your mind sees that nothing is wrong, nothing bad actually happened, you're not in jail, you're not hurt, nobody else is hurt, then it's gonna start to let go. And just like I said, the way it lets go is it starts to switch the thoughts quickly. Try to give you, at first the possibilities are gonna be like your usual kind of OCD thoughts, and they're gonna get more and more random because your mind will have a hard time eventually coming up with that many thoughts that often. So it's gonna start to switch to things that are you will say like, this is not even possible, so as it does that, then you will feel better, and you will be further and further in your recovery until you fully recover. So that was the show today. I hope you guys enjoy it. I will see you again next Wednesday. Sorry guys, I missed last Wednesday, but I will be back next Wednesday. If you need more information, you can either email me directly to info@youhaveocd.com. You can visit youhaveocd.com. I have books available there for different OCD topics. I also have my recovery program, which is one-on-one recovery program with me, so please check that out. And I also have a lot of free information. So it's if you need to get over OCD, or if you know somebody who needs to get over OCD, because this is based on experience, right? I had a lot of experience myself getting over OCD, and now years of experience helping other people get over OCD. So I do have a lot of information on there, so please check that out if you need help. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.